There are achievements that change a life. There are breakthroughs that shift a family's trajectory. And then there are those rare, consecrated, divinely timed moments, so extraordinary, so world-altering, that an entire nation holds its breath. You did not just accomplish something impressive. You stepped into a category that did not exist before you arrived. Watch this video all the way to the end, because every word of it is directly connected to what God is doing in your life right now. Drop your warmest wishes in the comments below. Write Amen and the number 99. There is power in a spoken declaration. There is momentum in agreement. And when a chosen one speaks from a place of faith rather than fear, something in the atmosphere responds. Like this video, subscribe if you have not yet, and let's begin. You did something no one else in your country has ever done. Let that truth sit with you for a moment, not in pride, not in performance, but in genuine awe, because this is not about ego. It is about evidence. Evidence that God placed something inside you. A design, a set of instincts, a direction that simply did not exist in the people standing around you. You were never supposed to follow the same path, operate on the same timeline, or submit to the same invisible ceiling that quietly governed everyone else. From the very beginning, there was a difference in you. It was not always recognized. It was not always applauded. There were stretches of time when that difference made you feel separated from the crowd. Misread, even alone. But here is what you could not have known back then. That sense of not quite fitting was not a flaw. It was a fingerprint. The first quiet signature of divine assignment written on your life. You noticed it in small ways. Doors that swung open effortlessly for others felt irrelevant to your spirit. Conversations that satisfied people around you left you restless. Opportunities that everyone celebrated felt like wrong turns in your gut. You sensed something larger pulling at you, something you could not yet name or fully see. That was not confusion. That was calling. And what you were carrying, that specific vision, that particular hunger, had no precedent in the environment you were standing in. No one around you had walked this road before you because this road was yours to build. This message was made for you. Stay with me until the very end. When you finally moved, the reaction was immediate. Some people applauded. Others doubted openly, but the most telling response was silence. Not the absence of words. Silence louder than any criticism you could have received. Because when people witness something they cannot categorize, they freeze. When they encounter a move they did not predict, they hesitate. When someone crosses a line they themselves were too afraid to approach. They grow still and simply watch. That silence was not indifference. It was recognition struggling to form itself into language. Your achievement stunned people, not merely because it was impressive. It stunned them because it destabilized something they had quietly believed, that there were certain things someone from your background, your context, your country simply did not do. There are unspoken ceilings everywhere. Cultural boundaries that feel as fixed as walls even though they were never written into law. Quiet expectations that shape what people believe is possible for them and for you. You walked straight through one of those walls, and when you did not just change your own position. You changed the entire picture. You proved that limitation was a belief, not a law. You demonstrated that geography does not determine destiny. And somewhere beyond what human eyes could see, something celebrated the obedience that carried you to that moment. Here is something that people rarely talk about when they describe groundbreaking moments. They almost never feel groundbreaking while they are happening. They feel uncertain. They feel heavy. They feel like walking through fog with no guarantee that the path continues on the other side. You were not walking a red carpet toward your breakthrough. You were walking through resistance, through whispered doubts from people who cared about you, through raised eyebrows from people who doubted you, through your own internal voice that occasionally asked whether you had misread the whole thing. But something steadied you. Not confidence in the traditional sense, not a guarantee that everything would work out. It was something quieter and more durable than that. It was a knowing, a deep, settled, unshakable sense that even if no one else understood the decision, you were not making it alone. God does not manufacture copies. He builds originals, and originals, by their very nature, disrupt systems that were built to reward repetition. Your move interrupted the cycle. It broke the rhythm of "this is how things are done," and replaced it with evidence that things can be done differently. That is not just success. That is a shift in narrative, and it is far more powerful than any headline could capture. There is a particular kind of courage that only awakens when a person has exhausted every desire to prove something to others. And what remains is pure, unfiltered purpose. That is the courage you stepped into. It was not reckless. It was not fueled by adrenaline or performance. It was deliberate. It moved slowly, steadily, from the inside out. It had been maturing in you for years, through seasons most people never saw. While the world eventually saw a public breakthrough, it did not see what came before it. It did not witness the nights when doubt was louder than direction. It did not see the quiet sacrifices, the comfort you gave up, the timelines you let go of, the version of your future you were willing to release in order to walk into the one being prepared for you. It did not see the mornings you chose faith over feeling, the afternoons you kept moving when stillness would have been easier, or the evenings you fell asleep trusting a plan you could not yet fully see. People were stunned by a moment. Heaven was marking a journey. When history records firsts, it tends to focus on the result. First to break this record, first to achieve that milestone. It reduces extraordinary human experience into a category, but heaven does not record it that way. Heaven records the surrender. Heaven marks the faith that kept breathing under pressure. Heaven honors the decision to move forward when comfort was available, and the easier path was clearly visible. That is what makes your story more than a statistic. It is not simply that you were first, it is that you were faithful. In the environment you came from, the culture around you, both spoken and unspoken, carried a particular set of expectations. There were things people like you were quietly expected to do, ceilings that were rarely named but deeply felt. Most people internalized those expectations. They built their lives within that invisible framework, and perhaps never realized it was a framework at all. You sensed the framework, and rather than submitting to it, you outgrew it. That is not something that happens quickly. It was cultivated in silence. It was forged during rejection. It was refined in the long, difficult seasons when you felt completely misunderstood. When your vision seemed too large, your ambition seemed out of place. Your certainty seemed naive to the people watching from the outside. Each of those seasons was not a delay. Each one was a classroom, and you graduated from every single one. When you finally stepped forward, you did not just succeed personally. You exposed something. You revealed that the invisible ceiling, the one everyone had been respecting for so long, was never actually solid. It was belief, a shared agreement that had been mistaken for a wall. And when one person dares to walk through it, the entire illusion shatters. That is what happened. Your breakthrough did not just celebrate your courage, it confronted everyone else's hesitation, not with mockery, not with judgment, but with undeniable proof that the line they feared was crossable. You are exactly where this message was meant to find you. Keep watching. There will always be people who prefer a simpler explanation for what you accomplished. They will credit timing. They will mention connections. They will say luck. And on the surface, they will sound reasonable. But beneath their explanation, most of them already sense that something does not quite add up. There was a precision to how things unfolded, a sequence, a grace, a set of doors that opened in an order too deliberate to be random. The timing was too exact. The alignment was too complete. The obstacles that could have stopped you somehow became the very things that prepared you. God orchestrates moments in ways that human logic cannot fully reverse engineer. He arranges circumstances according to a blueprint that was drawn long before the breakthrough became visible. And sometimes the evidence of that arrangement is so undeniable that even the most skeptical people in the room grow quiet. That quiet is not confusion. It is the reluctant acknowledgement that something beyond ordinary effort was at work. As you look back on what happened, do not read this as confirmation that you are finished. Being first is not a final destination. It is an open door. And you, right now, in this season, are still standing in the threshold of something that has only just begun to reveal itself. Here is a truth worth sitting with. The pressure you experienced on the way to your breakthrough was never random punishment. It was deliberate preparation. Every season of uncertainty built your tolerance for ambiguity. Every rejection sharpened your discernment. Every moment of doubt that you walked through and did not collapse under was expanding the capacity inside you. Not just capacity for success, capacity to carry influence without losing yourself, capacity to hold visibility without being consumed by it, capacity to remain rooted while standing in places that feel nothing like the soil you grew up in. Many people achieve a moment. Very few develop the inner structure to sustain what comes after it. And that is where you stand now. Not just as someone who accomplished something remarkable, but as someone who was built to carry it forward. After the noise of the initial breakthrough faded, something became visible in you that actually unsettled people more than the achievement itself. Not celebration, not ego, not the dramatic reaction they expected. What they witnessed instead was steadiness, a calm, grounded presence that communicated something without words. This was not luck. This was alignment. Because when God elevates someone, the elevation does not arrive as chaos. It arrives with a stability that surprises even the person receiving it. You were not destabilized by your own success. You were anchored, and that anchor, that interior stillness, came directly from the journey you had walked long before recognition arrived. You had already learned, through the difficult years, how to trust something you could not always see. By the time the external world began affirming what God had been saying to you privately, you were already settled in it. That is not luck. That is preparation meeting its moment. Spaces that once had no room for you are now making room. People who once watched you with quiet doubt are now referencing you with quiet respect. Environments that once treated your ambition like a problem have begun to treat your presence like an asset. That shift is not about you proving something to people who needed convincing. It is about the simple, undeniable weight of obedience made visible. Your breakthrough also did something subtle and quietly powerful. It disrupted comparison. In cultures where people constantly measure themselves against each other and use those measurements to determine whether to move or stay, your decision did not compete within the existing scale. It changed the scale entirely. You were not trying to outperform the person beside you. You were operating from a different level of conviction altogether. And conviction, true, God-sourced, tested under fire conviction, is impossible to argue with. It can only be witnessed. There are people right now, in places you have never been and conversations you have never entered, who are daring to dream bigger because of what you did. They may never meet you, they may never tell you, but your story is circulating as evidence, as proof. As the one answer to the most paralyzing question a person can ask themselves, has it ever been done before? Now the answer is yes, and that yes was spoken through your life. And yet, through all of this, the breakthrough, the recognition, the shift in how the world relates to you, you carry a particular kind of humility that keeps you grounded, because you know the full story. You know the nights that were not celebrated. You know the fear that tried to speak over faith. You know the version of yourself that almost turned back, and the quiet, stubborn grace that refused to let you. That knowledge is not a burden. It is a compass. It keeps you honest about where your strength actually came from. Being first does not mean you are finished. It means you have opened something. And opening a door is not the same as walking through every room that door reveals. There are still dimensions of your calling that have not fully surfaced. There are still chapters in your story that have not been written. What stunned the nation was a milestone, not a conclusion. Because once you discover that one ceiling was breakable, you begin to see that all of them are. The same resilience that carried you to this point is the same resilience that will carry you further. It has not been spent. It has been proven. The most enduring part of your story is not just what you achieved. It is who you remained while achieving it. You did not distort your values to reach your destination. You did not trade your integrity for access. You did not become someone unrecognizable in order to open a door that would recognize you. You remained, at your core, aligned with the person God shaped you to be, through difficulty, through obscurity, through pressure, and through elevation. That consistency is extraordinary, and it is precisely that consistency that makes your story worth telling far beyond this moment. Before you leave, subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Drop a comment below. Write what you are believing God for right now, because there is someone watching this who needs to see your declaration. Your words carry weight. Your agreement creates momentum. As time continued to pass, something else happened. The impact of what you did stopped being a conversation and became a reference point. It stopped being news and became standard. What once required courage to imagine is now offered as evidence to someone else who is still in the imagining stage. Your name, whether you hear it or not, is being spoken in rooms you have never entered, as proof that what seems impossible is simply unexplored. That is the difference between achieving a goal and altering a standard. A goal is reached and celebrated and placed on a shelf. A standard is established and referenced and built upon by everyone who comes after. You built a standard. There are individuals who observed you quietly during the seasons before your breakthrough. They watched your discipline. They noticed your consistency. They observed your commitment to something they were not entirely sure would materialize. And then, when it did, when the invisible thing you had been building suddenly became undeniably visible, their doubt became astonishment, not because the achievement itself was beyond comprehension, but because your persistence was. Because persistence at that level, sustained through that much uncertainty, reveals something about character that is genuinely rare. You did not stumble into history, you constructed the path to it. One inconvenient choice at a time, one quiet sacrifice at a time, through seasons when no one was watching and no one was applauding. And the only reason to keep going was the conviction that stopping was not an option your spirit was willing to entertain. When God calls someone to be first, He rarely announces it loudly. He rarely surrounds that person with a crowd of supporters who understand from the beginning. He places the calling in the interior, quiet, certain, persistent, and then he watches to see who will honor it when the exterior offers every reason not to. You honored it through the isolation of a vision no one around you could fully see, through the loneliness of a standard no one around you had yet modeled, through the ambiguity of a path that had no markers because no one had walked it before you. You moved anyway. God does not assign territory-breaking missions to those who require external validation before they will take a step. He assigns them to those who have learned, through difficulty, through delay, through disappointment, that His voice is enough, that His timing is sufficient, that His presence is the only map they need when the road ahead is unmapped. You learned that, not in comfort, but in the seasons most people never saw. The day that stunned the world was not a random event. It was a culmination. It was the moment when everything you had endured, survived, refined, and carried became visible to eyes that had not been present for the process. They saw the fruit. They did not see the root system, deep, established, long-suffering, that made the fruit possible. But you know the root, and that knowledge keeps you clear about what actually produced the moment they are still talking about. Here is what that means going forward. The same invisible work that produced your first breakthrough is the same work that will produce the next one. The discipline, the faith under pressure, the refusal to shrink to fit inside spaces that were too small, all of it continues, and it grows more effective, not less, with every season of faithfulness you add to it. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the point in the story where the reader begins to realize exactly what kind of story this is. Not a story about a lucky break. Not a story about being in the right place at the right time. A story about someone who refused to accept the version of their future that their environment tried to hand them, and who, in refusing, created something that outlasts them. Your breakthrough did not just open a door. It rewrote the imagination of an entire generation of people who are still trying to figure out whether doors like that exist. They exist, you walked through one. And now, because you did, others do not have to believe on faith alone. They have evidence. They have your story. They have you. There was a version of your country, your context, your industry, your community that existed before you did what you did, and there is a version that exists after. You are the dividing line, not because you sought that position, but because obedience at the level you practiced it always leaves a mark on the landscape it moves through. The truth beneath all of this is simple. Not easy, but simple. You refused to let what was inherited define what was possible. You refused to confuse the boundaries of your environment with the boundaries of your calling. You refused, when it would have been far more convenient to stop. To stop. And that refusal, that specific, faithful, costly refusal, is what altered history. What they saw when they were stunned was an outcome. What heaven recorded was an act of surrender so complete, so sustained, so costly, that the only appropriate response was to align the visible world with the invisible intention God had carried for your life from the beginning. You did something no one else in your country has done, and the world has not yet seen everything that means. The next chapter is already being written, not with noise, not with announcement, but in the quiet, faithful movements of someone who has already proven they know how to walk forward when the path is unclear. Keep walking. The same God who brought you to this moment is already working in the one ahead. This is not the ceiling. This is the floor.
Chosen one, listen to me with full attention. What I am about to share is not for everyone. This is urgent, sacred, and aimed at those who have been marked by God for a purpose that cannot be explained by ordinary language. If you are not walking the narrow path, if your spirit is not seeking God, you may feel uneasy right now. You may feel distracted, irritated, even tempted to click away. And that is fine. This word is not here to entertain the curious. It is here to awaken the chosen. Understand this plainly. You did not arrive by accident. This message reached you at the exact moment heaven scheduled it. Not early, not late, but perfectly timed by the one who sees the end from the beginning. And yes, it is going to change how you interpret your journey, because something extraordinary has already shifted in the spiritual realm, even if your natural eyes have not caught up to it yet. Your endurance has spoken louder than you realize. Your faith, your restraint, your ability to hold your ground when you could have fallen apart, did something unexpected. It brought joy to God. It shook the atmosphere. It disrupted the enemy's calculations. There were moments when you were supposed to break, moments where everything around you was engineered to push you past your limit. And yet you didn't become what the pain tried to shape you into. Before this message ends, you will understand why your hardest season was not your defeat. It was your victory, hidden in plain sight. Stay with me. And before we go deeper, chosen ones, do what you already know to do. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Turn on the bell icon, share this word with someone who needs it, and comment 99 to declare that you are aligned with the divine assignment God has placed on your life. Now breathe, slow your mind, let your shoulders drop. Let the noise inside you quiet down enough to receive what is being released. I'm going to say it in a way your spirit cannot misunderstand. You were never meant to break. Not then, not now, not ever. I know there were nights when your strength felt like sand slipping through your fingers. Nights when you stared at the ceiling, replaying everything, asking God questions you didn't dare say out loud to people. You smiled during the day, but the weight inside you was heavy. You wondered how much longer you could carry it. You wondered if the pressure meant you were failing, if the silence meant God had moved on, if the delay meant you had missed your moment. But listen carefully. The pressure was not sent to destroy you. It was allowed to reveal you. Those who are chosen are not shaped the way others are shaped. When God places something powerful inside a person, life responds differently. Situations become heavier. People misunderstand you without trying to. Delays stretch longer than what feels fair. Doors close without explanation. You look around and you see others moving forward easily, and you wonder why your path seems so intense. This is where many people lose clarity. They assume pain means punishment. They assume resistance means rejection. But in the spiritual realm, resistance often confirms value. Think about it. If you carried nothing, there would be no reason for such persistent opposition. If your assignment was small, the weight would be light. What you endured matched what you carry. And under that weight, you did not become cruel, bitter, or faithless. You bent, you cried, you questioned, but you did not break. That matters more than you can measure right now. There were moments you wanted to react, moments you wanted to defend yourself, explain your side, expose what others did, demand accountability, make people understand the truth. You had every reason to speak, yet something inside you restrained you, something deeper than pride, deeper than emotion, deeper than the urge to prove yourself. It was as if God whispered to your spirit, "Hold your peace, keep your hands clean, stay aligned." And that restraint was not weakness, that was authority being formed. Because breaking is loud, it spills everywhere, it demands attention, it wants witnesses. But endurance is quiet. It happens in the hidden place, where no one applauds, where no one sees, where no one validates you. And that is exactly where God was watching you most closely. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. When you thought you were alone in your struggle, heaven was closer than you realized. Let me tell you something that will lift shame off your chest. God never demanded perfection from you. He looked for sincerity. He looked for humility. He looked for obedience, even when it cost you comfort. And you gave him that, even on days when you felt like you were barely surviving. Some of you felt guilty for being tired. You told yourself a chosen one should be stronger, more joyful, more confident. But strength does not mean you never feel pain. Strength means you keep choosing faith while you feel it. You got up on days you didn't want to. You prayed prayers that weren't polished but were honest. You kept your heart tender in a season designed to harden you. You tried again when it would have been easier to quit. That is not failure, that is maturity forming under pressure. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Your weakness did not disqualify you. It became the space where God displayed his sustaining power. Now listen, the enemy did not expect you to survive without losing yourself. He expected compromise. He expected you to lash out. He expected you to abandon your values to protect your ego. He expected you to become reactive, defensive, restless, bitter, but you didn't. Instead, you stepped back. You got quieter. You observed more. You learned discernment the hard way. You realized not everyone who smiles is safe, and not every closed door is rejection. Some doors are protection wearing the clothing of disappointment. And while you thought nothing was changing, something deep was shifting. Your reactions changed. Your tolerance for chaos decreased. Your need to be validated began to fade. You stopped chasing explanations that never satisfied you. You started trusting God's silence more than people's noise. That is the moment where something powerful happens. God begins to trust you with more responsibility. Not just blessings you can post about, but wisdom you can live by. Not public attention, but spiritual authority. And authority is not given to people who break easily. Some of you questioned your worth during that season. You compared yourself to others who seemed to move faster, succeed quicker, and receive recognition easier. But what you didn't see is that God was not racing you against them. He was rooting you. Fast growth looks impressive until the storm arrives. Deep growth is what stands when the wind screams. You were being rooted so you could remain standing when others collapse. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. Philippians 1:6. God does not start what he does not intend to finish. Every delay trained your patience. Every disappointment refined your expectations. Every unanswered prayer forced surrender. You learned to trust God when he didn't explain himself. And that kind of faith cannot be taught in a classroom. It must be lived in the furnace. It must be forged in the waiting. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. You stayed in the process. You did not give up. That is why heaven noticed. There were moments, maybe more than one, when you thought, If this is what being chosen feels like, I don't know if I want it. God heard that thought, and he did not shame you for it. He understood the weight you were carrying. The strongest servants in Scripture reached exhaustion. What made them chosen was not that they never felt overwhelmed, but that they stayed submitted, even while overwhelmed. And you stayed. You stayed when walking away would have been easier. You stayed when nobody clapped for your patience. You stayed when silence felt like abandonment. That staying power is rare. That is why God allowed you to feel the weight, but didn't allow the weight to crush you. He knew your limit even when you didn't. Some of you don't give yourself credit for how much you endured without turning cold. You still care. You still pray. You still hope for people who hurt you. You still believe goodness exists even after seeing the ugliest side of human nature. That alone tells me your spirit was guarded. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. You overcame without becoming contaminated. And here is the part that brings peace if you truly receive it. God was not disappointed in your weakness. He was pleased with your honesty, pleased that you came to him confused instead of pretending strong. Pleased that you didn't become someone you would later regret just to survive a season. So stop replaying the moments you call failure. You didn't fail, you endured. And endurance in the kingdom of God is not passive, it is active faith under pressure. Now let me take you into something many people don't understand about God. People imagine him as distant, severe, always testing, always correcting. But God is relational. God observes. God responds. And yes, there are moments when heaven rejoices in ways you were never taught to imagine. There was a point in your journey when heaven leaned in. Not because you were doing something loud or visible, but because you were doing something rare. You were enduring without being corrupted by pain. This is what brought joy. God saw you choose restraint when retaliation was available. He saw you choose faith when bitterness would have been understandable. He saw you choose growth when escape would have been easier, and it shocked the enemy. The enemy studies patterns. He watches trauma. He analyzes triggers. He waits for predictable reactions. Based on what you went through, he calculated your collapse. He expected you to self-destruct quietly or explode publicly. Either way, he expected you to lose your alignment, but something happened that disrupted his expectations. You didn't respond the way your past suggested you would. You didn't become who your wounds tried to turn you into. Instead, you matured. You slowed down. You became discerning. And that silence from you was not emptiness. It was control. Hell fell silent because confusion entered the system. The enemy is loud when he understands you. He is aggressive when he knows which buttons to press. But when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, when you stop giving emotional access, his strategies lose accuracy. He doesn't know which angle to use anymore. That silence you entered was not retreat, it was elevation. While you thought you were falling behind, spiritually, you were stepping into a higher level of authority. Authority does not shout, it does not announce itself, it stands firm. And when you stood firm without needing validation, heaven took notice. God is not impressed by emotional performance. He is moved by consistency. Anyone can praise him when everything is easy. Few remain aligned when praise feels unanswered. You did. You had days you didn't feel spiritual, days you felt dry, days you felt disconnected, days you didn't feel strong, yet you still chose not to betray your values. You still chose not to act out of character. That quiet obedience is power. The enemy expected drama. He expected emotional collapse. He expected you to expose yourself in weakness, to spill your spirit into places that would weaponize it. But instead, you withdrew inwardly. You reflected, you learned, you healed in private. Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. You ruled your spirit, and that is a victory many never learn. That is why certain battles suddenly stopped. That is why certain people faded out of your life without explanation. That is why some attacks lost intensity, not because you became invisible, but because you became less accessible. Your reactions no longer fed the chaos. Your silence starved manipulation. And I want you to understand this so you stop doubting yourself. Silence in the spiritual realm is often confirmation. When attacks stop suddenly, it is not always because the threat disappeared. Sometimes it is because the strategy failed. You became unpredictable in the best way, not emotionally unstable, but spiritually grounded. You stopped operating from wounds and started operating from wisdom. God rejoices when a chosen one graduates from reaction to response, when they stop being controlled by environment and start being led by discernment. That is where authority is established. And authority does not need noise. Now let me go deeper, because some of you still underestimate what truly happened in the unseen. There was a moment when the enemy realized you were no longer operating from your wounds, and that moment frightened him. Wounds make people easy to manipulate, but healing makes people hard to control, and you crossed that line quietly. You stopped seeking closure from people who never intended to give it. You stopped explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped begging for fairness, and in doing so, you removed leverage. That shift didn't happen overnight. It happened through exhaustion, disappointment, surrender. And that is why it was real. You didn't fake healing. You grew into it. You passed tests you didn't even know were tests. God loves when obedience becomes instinct, when faith becomes posture instead of performance. You didn't announce, "Look how spiritual I am." You simply lived aligned. You refused to give access through anger. You refused to give access through pride. You refused to give access through desperation. You became guarded without becoming hardened. That balance is rare. Some of you thought losing certain people meant losing protection. In reality, you gained clarity. God removed noise so you could hear direction. And once you heard it, you stopped moving impulsively. That is when authority settles in. This is why certain temptations don't pull you the same anymore. This is why old triggers feel weaker. This is why drama feels exhausting instead of exciting. That is not boredom. That is growth. God's joy came from watching you choose long-term peace over short-term relief. Watching you resist becoming reactive just to feel powerful in the moment. If you've been feeling oddly calm lately, even without clear answers, that calm is not emptiness. It is stability forming. It is grounding. It is evidence that you are no longer easy to shake. Now, let me explain why your silence confused the enemy, because many people misunderstand silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not fear. Silence, when chosen with discernment, is one of the highest forms of spiritual intelligence. The enemy expected you to speak. He expected you to react. He expected you to defend yourself, expose others, explain your pain, argue your innocence. Because emotional noise creates spiritual access. Every reaction is a doorway. Every outburst is information. But you closed doors, not because you were scared, but because you were done wasting energy on battles that produced no growth. You reached a point where you understood that explaining yourself to the wrong people costs more than it gives. And that realization changed everything. The enemy studies behavior. He tracks cycles. He waits for familiar patterns to repeat. But when you stopped responding the same way, his strategy lost accuracy. You didn't disappear. You didn't retreat in defeat. You became selective. You chose where your words went. You chose where your emotions went. You chose where your spirit was allowed to engage. And that choice became protection. Some of you thought being quiet meant losing your voice. No. You were learning timing. You were learning weight. You were learning that words released too early can weaken what God is building. The Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the soul who seeks Him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Lamentations 3:25-26. Quiet waiting is not empty waiting. It is sacred preparation. While others argued, you observed. While others reacted, you discerned. While others explained themselves, you were being refined internally. And refinement happens quietly. Your triggers became less obvious. Your emotional patterns changed. You didn't give the same access points anymore, and that is why attacks started missing their target. Silence starves manipulation. Silence starves chaos. Silence starves confusion. Let me say something that will free some of you. You're not obligated to respond to every misunderstanding. You're not required to defend your character to people committed to misunderstanding you. Silence does not mean agreement. It means disengagement. And disengagement can be strength. Peace is not found in winning arguments. Peace is found in stewardship of your spiritual energy. Your consistency spoke louder than any explanation ever could. Now listen gently, because this next part touches old wounds. The season you called failure was not failure at all. It was one of the most strategic periods of your life. You measured that season by visible results, by progress you could display, by answers you could explain. And because those things were missing, you assumed something was wrong. You assumed you missed God, or worse, that God had moved on without you. But hear this, God does not abandon what He chooses. He prepares it. What felt like stagnation was actually separation. God was pulling you out of environments that could not sustain who you were becoming. He slowed you down on purpose because speed without clarity leads to destruction. Doors closed that you prayed would open. Opportunities vanished without explanation. Plans fell apart at the last moment, and you carried disappointment quietly. What you didn't see was God reducing noise, stripping distractions, removing roles and attachments that would have conflicted with the next version of you. Failure breaks people, preparation humbles them, and humility is necessary before elevation. In that season, your ego was confronted, your expectations were challenged. You had to sit with yourself without constant affirmation. That discomfort was not cruelty, it was cleansing. You learned what truly mattered. You learned who stayed when nothing was happening. You learned how to hear God without external confirmation. You are not falling behind. You are being hidden. And being hidden is not rejection, it is protection. Exposure too early can damage what is not fully formed. Some of you were protected from success you were not ready to carry, protected from platforms that would have magnified insecurity, protected from relationships that would have drained your oil. God was removing illusions. You stopped chasing things that looked good but felt wrong. You stopped forcing connections that required you to shrink. Quietly, your standards rose. That is not failure. That is discernment growing up inside you. Nothing was wasted. Every delay carried instruction. Every disappointment revealed alignment. Every closed door redirected you. You came out different, not louder, not flashier, but wiser. And wisdom is never failure. If God had handed you what you wanted back then, you might have lost who you are now. And who you are now can carry what is coming. During that time, you felt unseen, messages unanswered, efforts unnoticed, prayers that felt like they hit the ceiling and fell back down. And because you are human, you questioned your value. You wondered if you imagined your calling. But invisibility was not abandonment. It was concealment. Seeds are not displayed on the surface. They are planted underground. Darkness does not mean death. It means development. In that season, God was developing your inner life, your motives, your reactions, your ability to function without constant validation. You were learning to be faithful when no one was watching. That kind of faith is powerful because it is rooted in conviction, not reward. You learned how to sit with unanswered questions without losing trust. That is advanced maturity. Many walk away there. You didn't. That season detoxed you. It removed the need to prove yourself. It broke unhealthy attachment to outcomes. It taught you rest without guilt. And rest is not laziness. Rest is trust. Some of you were forced to slow down physically, emotionally, mentally. Your body demanded rest. Your mind demanded clarity. And when you surrendered, healing touched places you didn't even know were wounded. It also refined your discernment with people. You saw who celebrated you only when you were useful. You saw who disappeared when you had nothing to offer. That awareness hurt, but it freed you. You stopped chasing acceptance. You stopped overextending. You stopped performing for approval. And that shift prepared you for healthier connections. You learned to say no without guilt, to wait without anxiety, to trust without control. Slowly, your inner world stabilized. You became less reactive, more grounded. That season also protected you from arrogance. It protected you from tying your identity to achievement. It anchored your worth in God rather than outcomes. So, when movement comes, you will move from wholeness, not hunger, from alignment, not desperation. Now, understand this clearly, without fear and without confusion. You are being watched the entire time. Being watched by God is not about condemnation. It is about care and responsibility. God watches chosen ones like a master craftsman watches a rare work being formed with patience and precision. Heaven paid attention to details you thought were small. How you treated people who could do nothing for you. What you spoke when no one applauded. What you chose when obedience cost you comfort. Those moments mattered. At the same time, the enemy watched too, not with care, but with intent. He looked for cracks, compromise, impatience, bitterness. He waited for pride to surface. He waited for you to become rash, but he saw integrity. He saw humility. He saw restraint, and it disrupted his plans. The enemy understands talent and charisma, but he struggles to understand surrender. When someone consistently chooses alignment over impulse, his strategies weaken. You may have felt overlooked, but you were never ignored. Heaven recorded growth you didn't announce, milestones you didn't celebrate, victories you didn't even recognize. Impact in the spiritual realm is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like stability, sometimes it looks like peace, sometimes it looks like consistency. And consistency is rare. God noticed when old triggers lost power. God noticed when distractions no longer held you. God noticed when your prayers shifted from demanding answers to surrendering control. That matters because God does not release greater weight to those addicted to control. He releases it to those who trust Him enough to wait. You were learning to carry weight without collapsing, to hold authority without arrogance, to move with wisdom instead of urgency. That is why God watched closely, because what is coming requires maturity, not hype. And now, because you endured, because you stayed teachable, because you remained aligned, something has shifted. You're not the same person you were when this season began. You're calmer, clearer, more discerning, more stable. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will Himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. Establishment comes after endurance. Now listen carefully, because this is where many chosen ones become anxious and accidentally step out of alignment. What happens next is not about rushing. It is not about proving yourself. It is not about doing more out of fear. What happens next is about moving differently. When God is pleased, He does not throw you into chaos. He leads you into order. You may already sense subtle shifts. Your thoughts clearer, your reactions slower, your spirit steadier. That is transition beginning internally before it manifests externally. God moves within you before He moves around you. What comes next is clarity, not all at once, but step by step. Decisions that used to confuse you will become simpler, not because life becomes easy, but because discernment becomes sharper. You will feel less pressure to explain yourself, less urgency to announce your plans, less need to chase approval. That is maturity. Do not rush this. Many miss their moment because they force visibility before alignment is complete. You are not meant to chase doors. You are meant to recognize the right ones when God opens them. This next phase will require quiet patience, the kind that does not panic when progress feels slow, the kind that trusts timing more than emotion. You may notice new opportunities appear, but they will feel different, less chaotic, less draining, more aligned. If something requires you to abandon peace to access it, be cautious. God does not lead through anxiety. He leads through anchored direction. You need endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. Hebrews 10:36. Endurance is not your punishment. It is your pathway. God will also teach you restraint in this next season. Not everyone needs access to your plans. Not everyone deserves proximity because they clap for you. Protection increases with responsibility. This is not a season of impulse. It is a season of intention. You may feel calm detachment from outcomes. You will still care, still hope, still work, but you will no longer cling. That is trust becoming mature. Do not confuse stillness with stagnation. Seeds develop unseen before they emerge. Honor the process. You may feel led to simplify, to clear distractions, to tidy emotional loose ends. Follow that leading. Order invites clarity. Clarity protects peace. Peace helps you recognize God's voice without resistance. And one more thing. Expect confirmation, not chaos. God confirms direction through peace, consistency, and alignment, not through pressure, fear, and frantic urgency. If something feels rushed, pause. If something feels forced, step back. God does not rush his chosen into confusion. He leads them into clarity. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned. Isaiah 43:2. You have already walked through waters and fire. You are still here. That means God has been with you, and he is still with you. Now let me seal this word over you. Chosen one, you are not late. You are not broken. You were never overlooked. What you walked through was not meant to crush you. It was meant to clarify you. God is pleased with you, not because you were flawless, but because you were sincere, because you stayed soft in a hard season, because you chose alignment when nobody would have blamed you for choosing survival instead. Heaven saw it. The enemy miscalculated you, and now you are standing with more wisdom, more discernment, and more peace than you had before. That is not accidental. That is evidence of growth. Evidence of preparation, evidence that God trusted you with pressure because he knew you could carry it without losing yourself. So don't rush what God is unfolding. Stay calm, stay prayerful, stay grounded. You do not owe anyone a full explanation of your journey. God understands it completely, and he is guiding you with precision, not chaos. And if this message gave you peace instead of fear, that is confirmation that it was meant for you. Before you go, chosen ones, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, tap the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this message with another chosen one who needs strength today, and comment 777 as a declaration that you are aligned, protected, and walking in divine timing. Stay steady, stay faithful, stay anchored. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. Isaiah 41:10.